Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new On the Mark TV and radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and in our first half hour today, we're going to be able to chat with Dr. Sundeep Shukla from the medical staff at Cooley Dickinson Hospital and Mass General Brigham, who have a partnership together. He's a vice president there, and what we wanted to chat with him a little bit about is the winter doldrums, which many of us had during these colder days and nights and longer nights, and some of the things we can do to better our moods and our health during this time. Welcome to On the Mark, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, tell me what you do at Cooley Dickinson and Mass General, both in an administrative capacity and a medical capacity, so that you're so busy that the winter doldrums don't impact you.
So I am an emergency room physician by training. I work in the ER clinically still. I worked there yesterday. I am also the Associate Chief Medical Officer at Cooley Dickinson Hospital. So a lot of my job for the Associate CMO role encompasses improving quality, safety, processes in the hospital so we function better and have better outcomes for our patients.
Now, Cooley Dickinson is now affiliated with Mass General Brigham, and several other doctors from Cooley Dickinson and Mass General have been on the program before. Does the partnership offer people in Western Massachusetts better access and to medical care and better access to cutting-edge medicine?
Absolutely. We are very proud of our affiliation with Mass General Brigham. As you know, we have a new ER that's being built right now, and that is with the collaboration of MGB that we actually built that. That's going to be opening likely in December of 2025. We also are reinitiating a shuttle. You may have heard of the shuttle before at Cooley Dickinson Hospital, where patients could go to some of the Boston MGB hospitals for care. If they need specialist care, they need a second opinion. If they didn't have a person they could see locally. So that shuttle is going to get reinitiated in April of this year. It was taken away for a little while because of infection control and COVID, but we are very proud that we're able to bring that service back, and we heard the community loud and clear that we needed that. It's going to be a 20-passenger bus.
I think it's great because I get a lot of my care at Mass General, and one thing I can say is the drive to Boston is not fun.
I don't think any of us like that drive. It's tough in a vehicle, and then if you need a person with you, we will also allow a person to accompany you on the bus as well.
That is really great news. In fact, I think it's a welcome news to many people. I personally chose to go to Cooley Dickinson because of its Mass General affiliation after I had surgery at Mass General. And I think the partnership is a real boon for all of us in Western Massachusetts.
I completely agree. We have world-class care at Cooley Dickinson Hospital, but when we need specialists, we have the capability to provide you a referral to someone at MGB.
So we agreed we were going to talk a little bit about the winter doldrums, and I've learned over the years that it doesn't make a difference if you're in cold and snowy New England or if you're in warm and balmy Florida. The winter doldrums seem to impact people regardless of geography and climate. When they talk about winter issues, is it the colder temperatures or the lack of sunlight that impacts people the most?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. We know seasonal affective disorder is a type of depression, and it usually happens in the winter months. Usually there's 4 or 5 months out of the year that we actually have it. Usually in the late fall is when you actually will initially see it. And people will feel sad. They may feel a little pessimism. They may be more irritable. They may not sleep well. Appetite may not be that great. They may have poor energy or fatigue as well. And a lot of that is probably related to reduced levels of a chemical called serotonin, which helps regulate mood.
And that's a chemical that is impacted in some way by sunlight, right?
That is absolutely right. So the serotonin will help get better if you have sunlight. So vitamin D is usually what we get. So people who potentially have vitamin D deficiencies and don't have enough sunlight may be more prone for seasonal affective disorder. So having the sunlight promotes serotonin activity.
If people start to feel bad in the wintertime and they have this seasonal affective disorder, are there treatments for it? Are there cures for it?
So I think that every person is a case-by-case basis. So seeking out help from a health professional is very important in these situations. Now, initial things that people can do, have a regular cycle of what they do to promote your circadian rhythm, go outside when possible. If you feel like you're suffering from seasonal affective disorder, you should try to get some help. Confide in someone that you know, a friend or family member, because they can help you. And it's also very important to have a regular routine with eating and exercise. And also try not to make drastic changes, either financially or relationship-wise or family-wise, because if you're sad or have seasonal affective disorder, it can impact what decisions you're actually making.
That's true. I think a lot of people don't realize that if you're not feeling at your best, you're in no position to make those kind of decisions.
Absolutely.
So if somebody is feeling down and they've confided in somebody about what they're doing, how can they help themselves other than going outside?
Well, I think a lot of this is talking to your healthcare professional, because each treatment plan needs to be tailored to that person. There's other things, there's medications, there's light therapy. There's also potential for people getting high intensity lights in the morning. Sometimes when you wake up, if you have that high intensity light that you're exposed to, it can actually help reduce some of the seasonal affective disorder. But I think all of these need to be monitored and guided by a healthcare professional. And
would you just go to a primary care doctor to get help, or would you go to a specialist?
Typically, I would start up with a primary care doctor. Obviously, they can refer someone to a psychiatrist or a specialist if needed.
Well, a psychiatrist would be dealing with a mental health issue, but these physical symptoms that they get, can they eat better? You say get outside. Is exercise going to help, or is special lighting something you can install in your house?
I think the initial things are just having a regular routine, getting outside when you can, eating healthy, exercising like you mentioned earlier, because these are the things that the body looks forward to and can help regulate better.
Okay. Your primary time when you're not doing administrative stuff is spent in the ER. Does winter doldrums or seasonal affective disorder create other situations that bring people to the ER?
Yeah, people can potentially have muscle cramps. They may have abdominal distension or cramps in their belly. It can lead to people feeling very fatigued. And when you have other comorbidities with it, then it can exacerbate some of your regular symptoms that you actually have.
In terms of seasonal affective disorder, who does it impact most? Is it by age, by gender, by the type of work that one does?
That's a wonderful question. And what we have seen from studies that it mainly affects people in adulthood, usually over the age of 20, but it increases with age. And women are usually more predominantly affected compared to men.
Can you help yourself along with a specific kind of diet?
I think regular diet is probably helpful. Something that's not too high in fat, not too high in carbohydrates. Just a balanced diet is probably ideal. Because obviously, when people have seasonal affective disorder, they sometimes have sleep disturbances, and that may mean you sleep too much or you sleep too little, and sometimes food can impact that as well.
What, in your estimation, what's the right amount of sleep during the winter?
It all depends on the actual person. Sometimes people can function fully 6 to 8 hours. I would say ideally 7 to 8 hours is ideal for an adult.
Because I don't know about you, but I tend, when the days are short and the nights are longer, I can sleep a lot longer. But when I wake up to come to work at 4 o'clock in the morning and it's getting light out, I'm far more energetic.
Yeah. I think it's all based on the actual person. Some people need a little more sleep. Some people need less. There are days where, my clinical days, I'm pretty wired. I'm awake at 4 or 5 in the morning, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm ready to go. But then other days, you may not be as wired as you mentioned.
So talking about daylight hours, there's a proposal afoot to end daylight savings time or end standard time and go with one thing. I know people are impacted every time we change to daylight time or change back. But in your estimation, will we be stronger and better if we're living on daylight saving time year round versus standard time?
I think the jury is still out on that. I think that what I've read, there's studies on both benefits and disadvantages of both. So I still think that there's no clear-cut answer for that.
Yeah. Another question. Should we change our dietary habits and vitamin intake during the colder months to keep moving, or should we just be steady year-round?
I think for people who are vitamin D deficient, I think encouraging a regular vitamin is probably vitamin D capsules important. Eating foods that are rich in milk, eggs, poultry, that type of thing is probably helpful too. But also like a multivitamin, if you're able to take it, will be helpful.
And what about some of the other supplements that are out there? Would you prescribe those to somebody that was having a tough time in the colder months, or do you tend not to advise people about supplements?
So my recommendation is, some of the supplements that you may buy online in the store or read about are not always FDA approved. And so you may be taking something that may impact your health in a negative way. So my recommendation is, under the jurisdiction or the help of a doctor, I would consider what are the best vitamins to take.
Moving it back a step here, your training is in emergency room or ER procedures. How did you come to that? What made you make that choice in your career?
Yeah, so I'm from Missouri originally. I came out to Bay State Medical Center to do a residency, and I was actually a general surgery resident for 2 years because I love to operate. And then a lot of my really good friends were ER residents and said, hey, you should really check us out. Like, you would probably like this. And I like high energy. I like to really work hard during my shift. And so I did a couple of rotations, fell in love with ER, and then transitioned to an ER residency. And it's just great. I love the action. I love being able to meet different people, making bonds with people, and also improving their health.
And how many people do you see at Cooley Dickinson over the course of a year?
So our ER sees about 42,000 patients a year. And each day is different. Obviously, we average about 110 patients a day that we see. And so like when I worked clinically yesterday, I saw multiple patients. I saw patients who had strokes, chest pain, someone who had abdominal pain. We see every patient that comes in the door. And I'm proud that anyone that comes, we will provide care for them.
And how many people do you end up providing care for within Cooley Dickinson, and how many do you transfer over to Mass General?
So we only will transfer patients if we don't have the specialists that are actually required. We're fortunate that we have general surgery, orthopedic surgery, GI. We have an ICU here, so we're able to keep most of our patients. It all just depends on the day and what the situation is.
And for people, a lot of our listeners and viewers are in Westfield, Southwick, Granville, and the Hill Towns. And they have a choice basically between Cooley Dickinson and Bay State, or one of Bay State's satellites. What in your mind sets Cooley Dickinson and its partnership with Mass General apart from the competition, so to speak?
Well, I think what sets Cooley aside is that we are an equity-informed, high-reliability organization. And basically that means that we have processes and structures set in place to allow great patient satisfaction, great patient safety, amazing outcomes for our patients, and we strictly set up processes for that. So we have a structure and process in place that lead to patients being healthy, having good outcomes, and facilitating their health for the future.
And you also have satellite practices. I know that when I go to my doctor at Cooley Dickinson, their offices are on Atwood Drive, not actually at the hospital, but there are other satellite programs in the area. How many people work through the Cooley Dickinson system, and do you know how many patients the hospital sees in the course of a year?
So I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but we have thousands of employees through Cooley. We also have, as you mentioned, many satellite facilities, whether it's lab work, physical therapy, PCP offices, and access to care is really important to us at Cooley because we want everyone to be able to get care that they need. So whether that's a PCP at Atwood, like you mentioned, or getting a general surgery consultation or seeing a general surgeon at outpatient clinic, that's really, really important to us.
And Do you see larger or smaller amounts of patients? For example, during the winter months when it's cold and people are having a tough time with the climate, do you tend to see them more in the winter versus the summer, or is it consistent year-round?
So if you're talking about like respiratory illnesses, like RSV, COVID, influenza, usually we see more of those in the winter months because people are inside, they're living together, they're coughing and sneezing amongst each other. And so we will see more of that over the winter months, yes.
And as a physician, do you advise people to eat and sleep and be outdoors differently in the winter when they are confined because of temperature to one place versus the summer when they can be out and about?
I think everything is in moderation. Obviously, some people may not be able to be out in the winter very long for health reasons. And so I think if you do it in a safe manner, it's okay. In the summer, it may be too hot for some people. So everything in moderation and individually is what's important.
And do you recommend a different protocol during the winter months for younger patients, children, teens, young adults than you might for seniors?
Well, I think the key element there is that exercise is sometimes hard to do in the winter months. Kids are playing outside, people are going for walks, they're riding their bike, and a lot of the times we are not able to do that over the winter months. So I think setting up a plan of what you can do, whether it's going to the gym or having a bike in your basement or having a treadmill or a stair stepper, these things in your house are helpful to do. And like I have I have weights in my house. I also have an elliptical, and these are things that I like to do, and it's readily available for me because sometimes you don't want to go out in that cold to go to the gym, but having the opportunity to do it either at home or at a gym is going to be helpful.
I found a great device on Amazon. It's pedals, and you can put it under your desk and pedal while you're working, and then put it on a table and use it to exercise your upper body. And it costs maybe $35, but it sure beats going out and bicycling when it's 20 degrees below zero in the morning.
So interestingly enough, when I went to the store 2 days ago, I saw that. So it sounds like you're happy with it.
I seem to be. I mean, I don't use it when I'm in the studio because I'd be jumping up and down on the screen. But I do have a home office and a home studio, and I can cycle for up to an hour at a time at my own pace. And then, I'll take a break and I'll work on my upper arms. And it means for me not having to go to the gym every day.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, when it's 4:30 at night and it's dark outside, you may not feel as excited to go to the gym. So having these resources at work, at home will help you. I know my wife just recently bought an under-the-table treadmill that while she's at work, she'll just walk a little bit. And any small amount of exercise is going to be helpful.
We're going to take a quick break here to acknowledge our underwriters that make On the Mark and other programming possible. And we'll come back to chat more about winter doldrums, how to get through it, and other questions that you gave me to ask. So Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. We're chatting with Dr. Sundeep Shukla from Cooley Dickinson Hospital in Northampton, which is affiliated and a partner with Mass General Brigham, one of the famous hospitals of the world in Boston. And through that partnership, people that seek help and assistance at Cooley Dickinson can also get the expertise from Mass General and Brigham right in Northampton and in the surrounding areas. We've been chatting with basically about seasonal affective disorder, but part of your role at Cooley Dickinson is maintaining health equity, and it's a term that's thrown out all about. Can you explain what it is in layman's terms?
Yeah, so health equity is a way we can provide care for patients, regardless of where they come from, their background, what religion they are, what language they speak, or whether they have an opportunity to pay. Some people don't have insurance, and being able to provide care for those patients is really important to us.
I know that we hear a lot of general disdain for the high price of prescription drugs, the high price of medical care, and a lot of people can't afford it, or they go into debt trying to deal with something that's a relatively non-complex situation. Do you see any bright spots in the future with making health equity better and easier for people?
So I think that's a national problem, unfortunately. There's a lot of things that we are trying to do locally, whether it's having an ACO, having clinics that we can provide care for. I know there are many free clinics locally in the Valley, which patients can go to. But I think that that's a bigger picture that needs to be solved nationally.
Well, it seems to impact everybody, large communities and small communities. And I would assume if Cooley Dickinson is like any other hospital in the area, a lot of people don't feel well and they don't have primary care physicians and they just show up at the ER. And I don't know how a hospital can take care of that kind of volume of people.
And that's a great question, because that's what we see nationally. As an ER physician, I'm on different committees nationally through the American College of Emergency Physicians, and what we see is people are not having access to health care. They don't have urgent care access. They don't have PCP access. They can't get in with the PCP, so they come to the ER. And we want people to have good health, but a lot of times this can potentially cause a backlog of patients in the ER or who need care. And so the systems can be overwhelmed at times because there's just too many patients.
There is a problem with getting access to primary care physicians. Is this a national problem or a local one, or both?
This is both. Unfortunately, you may read in the media that primary care doctors are not getting paid as well as some other specialists. So a lot of the medical students are now going into medical school realizing that specialists will get more pay and they can pay off their student loans a little quicker. So there are programs to help with loan forgiveness and that kind of things to help with local PCPs or nationally. But I think that we have to set up a robust system for that in order to be successful.
Right now, do you have any idea what the waiting time to get to see a PCP in Springfield or Northampton might be?
I think it varies by practices. A lot of times, if I think a patient needs an urgent PCP, like let's say I start them on some medications in the ER, I will personally try to call a PCP's office and say, hey, can you please help get them in? We're not always successful, but at least we can try to bridge that gap and help with transitions of care.
How do you, as an ER doctor, you have people walking in off the street with an emergency or a non-essential health thing, but they have nowhere else to go. How often do you see people who can't pay or are uninsured, and what can you do to help them?
So I'll be truthful. I don't look at anyone's insurance, and most physicians and providers will not, because we don't want anything to bias us for care. So we will take care of anyone that comes in the door, regardless of whether they can pay or not. And I'm proud to say that, because I want people to get the care that they need. A lot of times a patient may volunteer, be like, hey, I don't have health insurance. Can you help me? And I will connect them with a financial counselor. Sometimes patients can get registered for healthcare, either through Mass Health or other entities. But for the most part, we are just taking care of patients because that's what we love doing.
Do you think that the government and the opportunities available on the federal level will be able to, over the next 5 to 10 years, help hospitals like Cooley Dickinson and doctors like yourself treat more people and develop health equity across larger lines?
I think that's 100% the goal. I think it's a challenge because obviously there's budgetary constraints for that, and there need to be processes and structures put in place. And I don't think we have those right now. But I mean, the goal would be to reimburse everyone who takes care of patients at a fair rate and allow patients to have access to PCP specialists and get the care that they need.
If somebody were moving to the area and didn't have a primary care physician, or they were with a practice they weren't particularly happy with, maybe with another hospital aside from Cooley Dickinson, and they want to make a switch or find a primary care, where do they start? And what do you think the wait times are before they might find the right doctor?
So interestingly enough, one of my colleagues who's also a physician sent me a message this morning saying, hey, do you know of any good physicians in Northampton? And I was like, I made some recommendations. I don't know of the actual weight because each entity, whether it's Hadley Family Medicine, Northampton, Atwood, for the Cooley Medicine Group, Cooley Dickinson Medical Group, everyone's different. So I don't know exactly how much it is for each entity. But if you're looking at local PCPs, it can be sometimes a few months for patients to be seen. But I think that calling around is probably going to be your best interest.
And probably surfing the web as well, because you could find out where the practices might be and then call them or check in practice by practice.
I think that's a great suggestion. So looking online, looking at any social media posts or any other sources where there may be a new physician or a new provider hired, sometimes you can get them with those people sooner because they're a new hire and they may not have a full patient panel.
Yeah, or you could always see the physician assistant within a practice much quicker than you could see the actual doctor.
Yeah, sometimes that is reasonable. I know that we have PAs and NPs, but sometimes their panels are full too. So I think, as you mentioned, calling around, seeing who has availability is what's important.
You mentioned it earlier in the broadcast, and it's been in the media that Cooley Dickinson will have a new ER within a year, a much bigger, expanded one. How many more people will they be able to treat once the new ER is open?
So typically when a new ER is built, the patient volume usually goes up about 10%. So we're anticipating maybe mid 40s to high 40,000 patients we'll see a year. And the space will be excellent because it'll be private rooms. As you very well know, if you go to an ER, many hospitals are fully booked. They may have patients in the hallway. They may not have great privacy. And so by building private rooms, that's going to be really helpful for us. And we have a separate behavioral health pod, which is great. And this also allows us to have EMS have easy access because they have a canopy to park in. We have a decontamination room that's readily available. And we'll have situations where we have like a resuscitation room where patients who are a little sicker can go directly into that room.
Will you continue to use the old ER when the new one opens?
So the old ER is going to get renovated. This is a couple phases. So the new ER is getting built right now. If you come by Cooley Dickinson, you'll see like a lot of the outside of it is built. The inside is now getting structured. But the old ER will also get redone, and then it'll become one full unit.
Did you, as a doctor there, have a lot of input or the opportunity for input on what you wanted in a new facility?
So I've only been here for about 6 months, so a lot of this process was done before I came.
So I bet you're ready, along with everybody else, to move into bigger and better.
We're all pumped up. The community has asked us for us, and we are ready to provide the care for them. And this is something that we should be very proud about because the community has donated money for us. The development of our hospital has been fundraising like crazy. We're working really hard because we want this to be the best place to get care, and we want everyone to trust us. And there's a lot of pride for Cooley Dickinson Hospital, and we want to continue that.
Yeah, there is a lot of pride for community for Cooley Dickinson, and there's a lot of Northampton-generated pride and Hampshire County pride in that facility and the practices that surround it. Last question: what made you decide you wanted to be a part of Cooley Dickinson and be in Northampton?
So interestingly enough, I used to work for Bay State. And I was at the different community hospitals, most recently at Bay State Noble, where I was chief of the ER there. And I know very well the Westfield, Southwick, Hilltown communities and the pride that people have there. And I saw the same thing when I came to Cooley. I live in Northampton with my family. I can walk to Cooley Dickinson from my hospital. But I really wanted to have a broader impact. I'm an ER physician. I was chief of the Bay State Noble ER. But I also wanted to improve processes, quality, safety for the entire hospital. And so that led me to come to Cooley Dickinson Hospital. And one of my friends who was a CMO at another hospital was like, hey, you should really apply for this job. You'd be really good at it. And after talking to my wife, we felt it was the right fit. We interviewed, and the rest is kind of history now. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I personally think you're in a great hospital. I've had some good experiences there. And I want to thank you for joining us today on the Mark.
Thank you very much for having me. I love your show, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Thank you again. We're going to take a brief break to acknowledge the underwriters that make On the Mark and our other programming possible, and we'll return to On the Mark. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today, and with me in the studio to kick off the new year, Stefan Czaporowski, who's the Westfield Superintendent of Schools and hosts his own program, Superintendent Spotlight, right here on Westfield Community Programming. Happy New Year, Stefan.
Happy New Year. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, and you kicked off the new year with a new school.
We did. Monday. We opened on January 6th. It was our first day, and I spent a good couple hours there, and to see the kids, they were so excited. I was getting high fives, and the kids, they were just so excited to be in the new place.
Now, how many years in the planning and the building has this been part of your life?
So for me, since I became superintendent in 2016, but it even goes before that because the previous administrations had worked on a new school, and it was going to be on Cross Street, and there were some legal issues with that, and it got held up. And when I became superintendent, I was like, okay, this project is not going to happen there, so let's come up with another plan. And that took a few years to happen. We have to go through. So the MSBA is the Mass School Building Authority, and that's who we partner with to build this school. And many cities and towns do that. So then we got a new location. So originally it was supposed to replace Abner Gibbs and back in the day, Juniper Park Elementary School, which has since closed, and instead it's replaced Franklin and Abner Gibbs. So now those schools have combined. But I would say it started as early as 2007, and then when I came on as superintendent, I'm like, all right, we have to move this project forward. So we did.
How did it feel on Monday to walk into a building that you'd worked on for years?
It was incredible, and I think one of the things that caught my attention was that my name's on a plaque, Mark. I mean, so I never had that before, like as you enter a building, so it's great. As both being superintendent and on the building committee.
Did they spell it right?
They did.
How good
they did. So that was terrific, because that's an issue sometimes too, particularly with my first and last name, right? So, but just to see the staff that were just thrilled. I mean, from where they were coming from to where they were going to. I mean, Abner Gibbs is a beautiful building, but it was built in 1914, and it's tired, it's old, and then even Franklin, both buildings had no temperature control, so to speak. It was either hot or cold, and now they have a temperature controlled environment. It's fascinating, and there's a big welcome to Westfield River Elementary sign in there. I know in a few weeks we're going to be doing a show from there, I hope. So
yeah, we're going to do something in the early spring when everything is up and running.
And I think you'll be very impressed with what you see. And it's huge. The school is huge, but it also has over 400 students in it. So
well, as I drive back and forth to the studio, I've watched it from the ground up, and it's only seemed like in the last month and a half that it really looks ready to occupy. And all the changes with the lines on Franklin Street and the new
traffic light.
Yeah.
Yes, I was actually talking with somebody who drove through that light because they didn't realize. Sometimes we're automatic as people, right?
Yeah.
Didn't realize the light was there and kept going.
I admit that before the light was turned on, I didn't notice it, and probably until the day before they turned it on. And I went, whoa, I've got to stop now.
They got to stop there, yeah. But it's good. I mean, and I think I like the proximity between WTA. There's already opportunities for collaboration with the young ones and our high school students, and those are developing. So it's just the way it's just exciting. I don't know how else to say it. It's my first new school ever that I've ever whether in my teaching or any part of my administration career, it is my first new school ever. So walking in, it still had that new school smell, if that makes sense. Everything is just so up to date. I mean, you walk in, they have these beautiful screens welcoming the students, but then it goes to like what's for lunch today and all this other. I mean, it's just a state-of-the-art school, and I really believe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And now that the pile of papers involving the transfer of students to the school and getting teachers set up, and now that that's all off your desk, what happens next?
So there is a phase 2 of the project, and I think that is the one thing that we are experiencing in the first few weeks of opening is some of the hiccups in terms of our full driveway isn't complete yet. Our full parking lot isn't complete yet. So they have to tear down the old Franklin, which should be starting any time now. And then we're having some hiccups, I call them, with pick up and drop off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon with some traffic. And we are working with the Westfield Police Department trying to come up with the best plan that we have. But we're actually meeting again in a couple days to see if there's anything we can tweak to make it better. And it would be more helpful if more students walked. But what we're seeing is a lot of parents dropping off their kids. Of course, the weather we've been having, I don't blame them. I understand. It's been really cold. So
it has been. Those mornings are brutal.
The wind is brutal. So
I don't know what it's like. I mean, I've been looking out the window of the studio today and seeing, stuff flying around the dumpsters.
You can hear the wind.
Right now. But driving to work this morning, today I live in Longmeadow, and it's Christmas tree pickup day where you have to put the trees out.
Whoops.
Whoops, they're in the middle of the road, and it's like driving an obstacle course.
There's just from the parking lot to here, there's like a wind tunnel right here, and it was really. I mean, I know it's a short walk, but I certainly felt it. I hope it gets warmer soon.
So we're in a new year. What are some of the new initiatives that are coming on board that you're involved with as we move forward?
So we are doing, I'm going to go to aviation first because we've had that on the show, but we are actually working on a grant that is due in a couple days that would allow us to actually expand our aviation program by adding another instructor. And it would allow us to take more students. And, we currently don't have enough instructors to meet the demand right now. So I'm hopeful that we will get that grant. That is a big one. We're also looking to, I know some of this isn't the most exciting, stuff, but we're going to be getting our budget process and planning that has started for the next school year. And that's, we meet with all the building principals, see what they're asking for in their buildings, and then we wait to hear, we find out the end of January what the Chapter 70, which is the state funding allotment, what that is, and then we move forward and start planning our budget. So that takes up really the next few months. We are also particularly excited about a grant we received for what's called the Bright program, which is going to allow us to put a new program at Westfield Middle School, and it's geared towards students with mental health concerns, so it helps them transition back into the school environment. So that is a grant that we will have for the rest of this year and next year, so we're very excited about that too. So it's all about trying to meet the needs of our students, and then of course coming up too, next fall is potentially the groundbreaking for our new athletic fields at Westfield High School. So there's a lot going on.
So your activity level never stops.
Never.
You don't get a day off at all.
Not really. And even the weekends I'm fielding calls and texts and stuff. But it's okay. I love my job. There's just a lot to do in a school district. And it's more than 40 hours a week, let's put it that way.
Yeah. I've been very lucky because you and I have collaborated on so many projects to get to meet a lot of the people in the various programs.
Right.
It was great having the choir from high school come in here and sing in the studio, and even more exciting to go out to Barnes and produce a couple of programs out there in the aviation hangar. I know you and I are going to collaborate on some stuff this year. What would you like for the two of us to do? What are some of the things you'd like to showcase?
Well, I want to showcase the new school for sure. And I don't know where we should broadcast from. I'm trying to figure that out, right? Because there's an innovation lab in there, which is dedicated towards STEM, which is the wave of the future, right? I mean, STEM is in everything, and we have a space dedicated specifically for that. So maybe we'll broadcast from there. But you'll be impressed with the music room, Mark, too, because
I can't wait to see it.
The whole band will fit in there at one time. Like, we don't have to do piecemeal because it's such a great space, and they have stands to be on, and all the instruments get locked up. It's just fantastic, and you can tell I'm still pretty excited about that.
I mean, Peter Carls and team have been out in the new school already.
Pete's been there, yeah.
And Brady, who's working with them, and they just rave about the school. So I can't wait to take a couple of programs that we can work on together over there.
Absolutely. And we have options because, we have focused on WTA, but we certainly can focus a little bit, too, on Westfield High School. I have a show coming up for National Law Enforcement Day where I'm actually bringing on some students and the instructor for our criminal justice program, which you don't hear a lot about because it's at Westfield High as opposed to Westfield Tech. And so they're going to be coming into the studio, and we're going to be talking about law enforcement careers and why they went into those careers. And that's pretty, I do think it's tough to ask a 14 or 15-year-old what career they want to do for the rest of their lives, but these students have chosen this program and stuck with it, and they want to continue it. So,
or the aviation. When I was astounded by they were sophomores and juniors we talked with, so 15, 16 years old that knew what they wanted to do when they grew up.
And they were pretty eloquent too for that age.
They were.
Typically, you don't see that.
Well, no, there was another group of kids that came in that are simultaneously going to Westfield High School and getting college credit at Westfield State University. Those kids were sharp.
They were. In a matter of fact, a few months ago, we had those students there. We had the Secretary of Education, Patrick Tutwiler. We had the Commissioner of Higher Ed. We had the Commissioner of DESE, Russell Johnston, and they interviewed those students about their early college experience, and I was so proud of our kids and the way that they answered the questions that they had for them, and just how much they're getting out of the program. That's the other thing. I'm proud of so much that we've done here in Westfield Public Schools, but our early college program is second to none, and the fact that we can, in this area, and the fact that we can graduate folks with 18 college credits, but our goal moving beyond this year is to actually increase the amount of credits that students have. My dream, before I retire, Mark, is that students will be able to graduate Westfield Public Schools with an associate's degree and a high school diploma at the same time.
That would be incredible, and I bet it happens during your tenure.
I hope so. I mean, there are other schools who are able to swing it, and I don't know how, and I'm trying to, across the country, I'm trying to figure how we do that. It might mean starting early college as early as sophomore year, but I think if we plan accordingly, we'll be able to make this happen. And really, there's twofold. One, you hear about college and career readiness, and we focus on careers now too. I mean, our high school career center now, Westfield High School Career Center services a couple hundred kids, and they're going out in internships, and not to say that there's anything wrong with McDonald's or Burger King. That's not where they're going. They're going to Bay State Noble, and they're going to places like that, or advanced manufacturing, or Tie and Bond, and they're going to check out places to see if that's a career that they want, and then we place them with an internship or a work study, because I think after you're 18, listen, there's people that are in their 40s and 50s that still have career changes, but I think we want you to know what you want to do when you're 18. And there are also part of this practice is so you can rule out things you don't want to do, right? So like for myself, for example, I do not love the sight of blood, so a health program would not work for me, right? And I would be able to identify that. We just want our kids to know, or give them a hand with what they think they want to do, give them some experience in that field, whether it be college coursework or actually field work experience in the field, or both. And I think that makes high school more relevant. I think it's more rigorous, and I also think it potentially has the potential to engage our students that much more. When you talk to a typical high school student, not necessarily at this school, but across the country, a lot of our high school students will say that school is boring, and I want to change that.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I work with young people all the time, and they go, "Well, I can't wait to be finished with high school." And either their parents are pushing them towards college, and I can't wait to go to college. And a lot of that reason is because they get freedom from home, but they don't seem to be academically challenged.
No, and I think that we have to, as an educational system across the nationwide, it's on us. We can't teach and do things the way we did 30 years ago. The world has changed so much. Technology does so much for us. This AI stuff is scaring me a little bit, by the way, and what it's going to mean for education. But, it's here, it's happening, so we have to embrace it. And the thing is our students are more familiar with that than most of us adults because they're growing up with this technology, and they embrace it. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but...
Yeah, but, you can also learn from young people. I had one of your high school students on this program a couple of weeks ago who's an IT student at Westfield Tech.
Yeah.
And we talked about all these people that got new tablets, new phones, new computers for the holidays, and they don't know how to work them. And I was always told, if you don't know, ask your child.
Yeah.
And Brady, who came in here, did a whole half-hour program with how to safeguard your
So he's been on my show talking about cybersecurity, and that's a whole other scary thing,
It
too.
It is.
As you see these breaches that keep happening, right, and what we do to prepare for it. So, yes, Brady's he's a talented young man. He will be very successful.
He's going to go great places,
Yes.
and some of your aviation students are going to really soar, so to speak.
Absolutely, and if we can add an instructor, that's going to allow us to really add another 14 students to the program. And since we know the demand for that program is so high, we only have 14 seats and probably averaging 60 kids a year who want to get in.
And it's one of 3 high schools in the country that has it.
Right, with the FAA certification. And now we are airframe and power plant certified. So that means before we were able to do everything but the engine, but now we can do the engine as well. And these students are going to be in such high demand, that they'll be able to name their price, I think, soon.
We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more On the Mark with Stefan Czaporowski. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every 4th Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. We're chatting with Stefan Czaporowski, who's the superintendent of the Westfield schools. He has his own program here on Thursdays called Superintendent Spotlight. And you and I frequently get the great opportunity to collaborate on programs which showcase some of the unique talent in the Westfield schools. I've had students from Westfield Technical Academy on a program called What Young People Think.
Right.
We've done 2 shows from Barnes Airport with the aviation students. I had some of the singers here last fall and some of the students that are getting college credit at Westfield State University on the program. So I'm always thrilled to have you on board because you showcase a school system that to me is unique.
I think we are unique. I think we are. And it's interesting. One of again, we were talking earlier about high school, and for me, I look at it as I've wanted to reimagine high school for years for our students. And we had Commissioner Johnston out recently. He's the DESE commissioner of K-12 for the whole state. And between our early college program and the engaging programs that we're putting in place, he did compliment me, and I don't usually pat myself on the back on that, but he said, you are reimagining high school for this district, for your students. And he said, and that's what we need to happen across the state. Again, we need our kids to be engaged. We want them to find careers that they're interested in, and we want them to lead happy lives. We also want them to come back to Westfield if they go to college. We want them to stay here and grow up, raise a family here and stay engaged in the community. But it's important.
Well, you sort of stayed in the region where you grew up and went to high school.
I did.
And I went away for many years and then came back. I live now a mile from where I grew up.
That's incredible.
And was able to carve out a professional career, not only here, but nationally.
Right.
And I think it's important to come back.
Yeah, it is. And give back to where you came from, too.
Yeah, we all owe something. In the end, we all owe something to the towns we grew up with and the people that molded us and shaped us to pursue, a life that we are able to pursue. On the other hand, I am the first person to champion the idea from out-of-towners to move here and make a difference.
Absolutely. But 01085 is one of the hottest area codes in the nation, which basically means there's no housing available here. Yeah, we want our kids to come back, and a lot of them do. And even, one of the things about our early college program is I also think about college costs, right? So we're trying to defray some of those costs for our kids, but anyone who goes through that early college program is automatically accepted at Westfield State University. And Westfield State, compared to other universities, is not a bad deal financially compared to some of the other places that are out there. I mean, some of them are charging over $80,000 a year to attend their school. I don't know how a student unburies themselves from that debt.
I don't know either. I mean, I went to a prep school. And I'm very proud that I went to Northfield Mount Hermon. But I saw what the tuition is now. If you don't get a scholarship or a break, whether you're a boarder or a day student. And I don't know how anybody can recap 4 years of that, 4 years at a college and maybe graduate school on top of that. You've got to have a lot of money at your resources, and if you take out the loans, you'll be 65 when you pay them off.
Well, it's like you're taking out a home mortgage for your education equivalent.
Yeah.
And then how do you buy a home, and how do you get a new car or any of that things because you're so saddled with debt. So if there's anything we could do as a community, I'm all about it. But I also think it increases our students' college readiness too. I mean, you want to have a student ready for college, have them take college courses, and they'll figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah, and then they can decide at that point whether they want to go on, whether they want to stay at Westfield State or they want to go on somewhere else.
Right, and their credits are fully transferable, which is another bonus, right? So they don't have to go to Westfield State. I do think we are fortunate, however, in Westfield to have a wonderful university in our own backyard. I do. They do a lot for the city, and they do a lot for our students.
People take it for granted, but the opportunities there from events, open lectures, and all kinds of programs, and it's literally up the street.
Right, and I do hear a lot of people go to their dining commons to eat too. I hear that.
We used to have a radio studio on the third floor of the Eli building.
Yes,
and I could eat my way from the Dunkin' Donuts in the basement up to Eli. They say the Westfield Dining Commons are great.
They are.
But what a great library they have.
Absolutely.
Performing arts spaces. They have a TV studio, a radio studio.
Was it on your show or another show? I'm trying to remember. Or with that interview, we had students, high school students, saying they go up to campus. I think it was our
It was a show that we did with the four. I guess there were 4 students that were part of that college, the early
college program.
And a couple of them said no, they don't go up there.
Others do,
but they do.
Yeah, and they hang out in Eli building, and they appreciate the environment. It's open all the time, whereas our schools close at a certain point, right? So you can't be at the library at 6:00 at night, but you can be up at Westfield State. I think it just opens more doors for our kids, and I hope to get more students.
I wonder if we had that opportunity to gain college credit when we were in high school, how our lives would have changed.
That's a great question, because I would have done it. Would you have?
Yeah, I would have definitely done it.
Me too. And college wasn't that as anywhere near as expensive back then, but I think I would have wanted the experience because I knew I wanted to go to college. I also knew there were a certain number of prerequisite courses you had to take, English 101, English 102, those things. And so our students have that under their belt by the time they graduate.
Yeah, I went to a high school that really pushed going on to college. 98% of the grads went on to college or university, and a lot of them to Ivy League. So I advanced placement out of like 4 courses. So I started college.
With 12 credits?
With 12 or 15 credits.
Yeah.
And almost finished a semester early. And it was a wonderful opportunity, but I think I would have chosen differently had I been exposed to what college would have been like when I was 15 or 16.
Right. Well, I think it helps, as you said, the students realize, do I want to go to college? Maybe that's not what I want to do. Maybe I want to go right to work. Maybe I've had enough of school. But I think the scariness factor can be removed because you can at least experience it and then make an informed decision rather than one out of fear. And then the financial piece, again, is we're seeing less kids go to college, and people are asking, well, why do you think that's happening? And my answer, cost.
Yeah.
Who wants to have to pay that for the rest of their lives? Like you said, 65. I mean, that just doesn't seem appealing to people. And if you can go out and get a job, like students that are coming to Westfield Technical Academy, if you can go out and get a job that pays pretty well without that college degree, that also becomes appealing.
Yeah, but not to date ourselves in terms of age, but when we were going to high school, I was told from day one, you will go to college, you will go to graduate school, and you'll go to a good college. And the colleges that were recommended were not, in my eyes, what I think are good colleges today.
Right.
It was Princeton, Yale, Harvard, as opposed to, I could have gone to UMass for a quarter of the cost of what I spent.
Quarter.
Yeah. And had gotten just as good an education, or Westfield State as a state resident. Instead, I ended up in a private university and then in an Ivy League one. And I was fortunate enough that I worked to pay off.
Right.
I didn't have to take a lot of loans off. I was working full-time in grad school, but a lot of kids don't have that chance.
Right. And I was working while I went to grad school as well, and I paid my own way for that.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. I really am.
I am too. You appreciate it more, and I think you have more skin in the game, if that makes sense, when you're paying.
Once you've invested in something like that and you pay, you'll study better. I mean, there was a point in time when I'd skip classes because they were at 8 o'clock in the morning, or I'd been partying the night before.
Well, when you pay, you're not skipping a class, are you?
Exactly. You're paying. You're working on it. So, did you get a holiday vacation?
I took a few days off, but I did not go anywhere in particular. We were also working on getting the school open for January 6th, so there were things that we had to do. We had to move the schools over the break. So the staff had packed all of their belongings, but we had to make sure that everything was ready for Monday morning. And that took up most of the break, which is understandable. Again, we had to move. The teachers had to come in and unpack and try and set their rooms up. But I'll tell you, it was so worth it. And we're having a grand opening. I should say open house. It's already open, right? And a ribbon cutting. But we wanted to do it. We're doing it on a Saturday. So it's January 18th at 11 o'clock. And and people will be able to come in and do a tour after we do the quick ribbon cutting. But the reason we're doing it on a Saturday is because we actually want, when the public comes into a school, we prefer not to have the students there, just for safety reasons, right? But you're certainly welcome to attend, but you'll get a personal tour anyway, so you certainly don't have to.
Yeah, I know people, as they say.
You do, but you want it. But I think I want to encourage the public to please attend, because you have to see this amazing building and just the environment for our kids, and really just the downtown location. It's just terrific. Our students who are in our oldest buildings that were least desirable are now in the best building in the district. So they went from one extreme to the other, and I think that's pretty cool. And I think once Phase 2 is finished, that space is going to be terrific. There's going to be a softball field for Westfield Tech students to play. Right now we go down to Whitney Field, and so they'll be able to walk down the street to a new field for them. There'll be green space. There'll be more parking. It's just going to be terrific once we get there. So again, the project is not complete, is my message. There is more to come, and then we'll see what happens after that.
And down the road, you'll get a holiday vacation, right?
Maybe, yes.
Maybe.
Hoping.
Well, Stefan, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
We've been chatting with Stefan Czaporowski, who's the superintendent of the Westfield Public Schools. This wraps up this edition of On the Mark TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Happy feet, I've got those happy feet. Give them a low down beat, and they begin dancing. I've got those 10 little tapping toes, and when they hear a tune, I can't control. Dancing here, save my soul. Weary blues can't get into my shoes, because my shoes refuse to ever grow weary. I keep cheerful on an earful of music sweet, 'cause I've got those happy, ba-da-da-da-da.